Golden Globes for my mom. It's pretty good.
I chewed during my high school graduation. I chewed gum, which my mom was horrified. Was like the first thing she said to me. No, those ceremonies are so important to parents.
It's funny. Clara, my daughter, just graduated, and it was in the ice rink in the middle of Prospect Park, and it was very warm. And I remember I looked at Yolanda, and she was like, "We didn't bring a flask," and I was like, "It would have been so good," But yeah, proud moment, graduation. I'm glad mine passed quickly and onto adulthood. So.
You've done half the job. That's great. Well, listen, why don't we get a good crew here. I don't want to hold everybody up. Everybody knows the rules. We're just going to chat for 45 minutes, have a good conversation. This is obviously very collegial, very friendly. I actually prepared myself a cocktail, so I hope other people enjoy it.
What about one of those?
Yeah, perfect. So I'll just say like 3 things about Matt. I discovered him in the most amazing place, Hotel Pelicano, which is in Italy. And those of you that know my wife know that she's introduced me to much finer places than the islands of Lake Erie. So I've seen much more of the world thanks to my wife. And we stumbled across this hotel, and Matt was speaking about one of his books. And I've just followed his career now for 3 or 4 years. And he's worked at Condé Nast. He's an amazing photographer, author, adventurer. But I think what's really interesting is his ability to take kind of creativity, what he's really good at, and package it from a commercial standpoint around kind of fashion, lifestyle, adventure, both very like exclusive, crazy stuff in Paris, but also kind of more lowbrow, like fly fishing in upstate New York, and finding beauty in diners as well as finding beauty in 5-star restaurants in Florence. So he's a really great guy, and I'm really thrilled that we made this happen. I want to thank Matt up front for taking some time to chat with us, and that's really the lowdown. So I'm thrilled that William Brown Project is in the house in Brigadoon. So Matt, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, guys. I mean, I really appreciate it. Like, I'm always embarrassed by those introductions, but secretly flattered. And I think the whole navigation of what has become a career has been through just kind of scrappy necessity, and sort of always kind of pursuing this course of, how do I just get away with doing the thing I care the most about and what I love, and I always approached it in a very selfish way of like, how do I not suffer? Like, how do I find a way to get somebody to pay for my travel? How do I find my way to like navigate the world through the eyes of an editorial vehicle like Condé Nast magazine? So I think because I always wanted to be a photographer from the moment I realized I couldn't draw. My dad, who was my dad was a graphic commercial artist and great sign painter and a very serious amateur photographer. And I think he sensed that frustration and handed me this camera. And that was this passport to the world. You could hide behind it. You can express yourself through it. You were able to meet girls by holding one. There was, the jocks loved you. The nerds loved you. It was like this great, it was this great equalizer, the camera. And I really put all my eggs in one basket with that. And that led to me going to RIT in Rochester, which led for me going to school in Europe, and then coming back and working in New York as an assistant. I'd never been so happy to make $85 a day, like changing toilet paper, and just was like, oh my God, they got lunch from Balducci's mom. Like, it was like that kind of unbridled enthusiasm. And I think I was really surrounded by very supportive, talented people that kind of nurtured the dream, which was, the odds were against me on many levels, but I just naively just forged ahead. And then, that led to this career in photography, which led to this commercial career, which was very financially rewarding, but I think emotionally very hard for me. It just it drove me nuts. Like the magazine editorial world was so free, and then as soon as they started paying you double digits, you were like, wait, now I have to listen to somebody. Like, it used to just drive me crazy. So that's when I, fast track started on the editorial side rather than creating imagery, kind of creating stories. And that was a dream come true in terms of the magazine world. And my wife was creative director at Traveler. We had a really good friend, Pilar Guzman, who was the editor in chief. And they kind of handed me, this platter of just great opportunity. And there was no way I was going to let myself not take advantage of that. So that led to the watch book, which, because I was a watch editor at the magazine. And then as we kind of watched the legacy magazine world kind of just change dramatically because of the digital format and how their business models changed so dramatically in terms of how they chased money. We saw the writing on the wall of where this was going and decided, I've always wanted to do my own magazine, because I just wanted to be my own boss and put in the content I always struggled to do. And then, again, like what you said, Mark, I wanted to talk about cheap canned beer and I wanted to talk about vintage champagne. And they were like, how do those two things work? And I wanted to prove them wrong, that they work seamlessly with each other. And it's under this one umbrella now, which is William Brown. And, in the meantime, I, had some success with that watch book, which opened up doors to kind of create other kind of book dialogues, as I call myself the accidental author. Like, I never had any idea, but the watch book ended up being a good idea that was recognized by Artisan. And then they allowed me, oddly enough, to do a couple more. And the most recent, we did the car book, and then I was in a meeting with them. And Artisan is a terrific publisher. They do a lot. They do some of the best cookbooks in the world. Like, they have from Thomas Keller to Sean Brock, and everything in between. And they said, you drink a lot of Negronis, we noticed. And I was like, yeah, it's a favorite drink of mine. And they said, well, why haven't you asked us to do a book on Negronis? And I said, are you asking me to do a book on Negronis? And they said, yeah, we really would love you to do this book on Negronis. So we took the deep dive on it. And, it was interesting during this last, year and a half. I was meant to be, Mark knows it well, at places like the Pelicano in Italy or Barbasso in Milan, like photographing this book. Like, I took on the photographic burden of the book, just I thought it would be easier, and I liked the subject well enough. And we ended up having to recreate, I would say, a good 85% of this book in either my backyard in Brooklyn or my house in upstate New York, like creating Italian environments to photograph these recipes. And what was really great is Yolanda and I had, acquired ashtrays, stir sticks, napkins from all these hotels around the world. So we had to create all these little Italian environments. But for me, during that whole lockdown, I mean, we kept very busy, not only staying active producing the quarterly magazines, but producing these two books in the scrappiest of scrappy ways. And I think now more than ever, I appreciate that evolution of scrappiness and how it kind of pays off when you realize you may not have all the resources you need to get something done, but how do we just get it done? So that's the short story on the journey.
Yeah, no,
story, depending how you look at it.
No, somebody the other day said to me, it's not really, I mean, it's always great to have resources. And we've, like many people on the call here, we've had a lot of capital, not enough capital. A lot of people here are entrepreneurial, but it's really about being resourceful at the end of the day. Like, how do you deploy those resources to kind of execute your vision of what you want to try and accomplish? And yeah, your talent as a photographer, and then marrying that up with the commercial side, and then just kind of going against the grain. I mean, I love magazines. Like, I don't know why there's not more magazines. Like, I still miss newspapers. Like, yeah. I'm a dying breed, but it's just like, you're like, no, we're going to do this. We're going to do a freaking magazine. I think just pushing against the grain has been interesting, just watching your journey.
Well, I think I agree with you with magazines. And I remember a time when, forget about like National Geographic, where no one threw any of those away, but walking into, relatives' house where there were stacks of, Vogue's, GQs, and House and Gardens and Vanity Fairs, and just like the time capsule of what those things are. And I got really irritated when I was at Condé Nast and they suddenly put like, please recycle this magazine on the masthead, and I was like, please recycle it? How about hold on to it forever, or give it to a friend, or leave it on the back of a toilet somewhere? I was like, no, do not throw this stuff away. Like, how do we create content that seems relevant enough and then not too newsy, but more evergreen, that just becomes a kind of, a great coffee table item, and that was the romantic point of view about the magazines. And I felt that, you didn't have to charge it. It didn't have to be in a certain amount of light to like read it correctly. If you were by the pool, it could take a hit with a cocktail and still survive. And, all that kind of why we didn't maybe think about it, of why we loved magazines. And I also, my photographic background, there was a huge talent pool of just epic photographers that suddenly had very little outlet for their editorial work because all the magazines were gone. And these are like people like Dewey Nix and Henry Lutweiler. Like Henry to me is sort of like an Irving Penn of my generation, our generation. And they were like, whatever you need from our archives to fill the pages, you could have it. Or Dewey would, shoot stuff just to like exercise that part of his brain. So that was an actually very good business strategy, because we ended up really not having to come out of pocket for that and concentrate so much of the resource, Yolanda's time, my time, and our art directors for Yola and for Wayne Brown were both folk, like working under the table for both to work with us, which was incredible to have a resource like that. So we put all the financial, all the bread and butter of the financing into the production of this item, which we didn't want to compromise in terms of how it looked and felt and how it was printed. It was printed in the States. It didn't have to go overseas. And then we kind of tapped into all those other resources. I mean, the problem with that is now I realize after 8 issues that I'm going to have to start paying people.
Before I turn over to before I turn over to the group, I work in my real job is like communications, kind of public policy, trying to understand what the hell is going on in global business and influencing people around that. And I'm very interested in kind of editorial calendars, taking advantage of inflection points, mapping out the year. Can you just give some advice on just how you think about content in terms of like delivering it to your various audiences?
Well, I'm married to a very organized woman, which is very helpful, who keeps me on track. I think, when my friend, who is a very prominent publisher in Condé Nast, saw the first issue of the magazine, he looked at it and he was like, this is great, but how is all that content sustainable? And that's when I realized what my strength was. Like, my strength was, I know I could build out content in terms of the magazine and also the editorial, like digital dialogue of Instagram and stuff like that. I know I could do that in my sleep. I mean, that's just what I'm good at. What I'm not good at is keeping things on track and organized. What I'm not good at is actually paying attention to the calendar and what's in it. Like I have a very romantic version about that. So I quickly realized how important it was to have someone in your life that is sort of keeping that stuff on track. And then also the business end of this was like learning a new language. I was never a publisher before. We realized there was going to require some hard currency to get this thing made. Beyond the first one that was paid for when my Land Rover got crunched in front of our house here in Brooklyn by a London planes tree, and the insurance company cut me a check for the full value of the car. And I was like, now we're going to make a magazine. Like, that was the best friends and family investment we've ever had, But I think, we're a very small team. Yolanda and I are doing, most of the heavy lifting. And I think we have very clear, defined roles of what our strengths are. And I think we work really well together with that in terms of keeping all that organization under wraps, even though it does fists do fly on occasion in our kitchen.
That's part of the entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah.
contact.
But
So is
you know,
that,
I think we're just to, sorry to interrupt, but I think like we're not sort of being totally kind of naive and romantic about all this stuff. Like we really look at this as a real business, and I think the next move with this thing, this platform, for lack of a better word, is to really scale this, because now that we have a point of view and people putting eyeballs on this, even if it's in a niche way, I do think there's a incredible opportunity to really scale this thing in a much more kind of smart financial way. And that is, always keeping the romance of the magazine, but what are the next kind of modern points of view in terms of marketplace and digital that can really relate back to this thing. And that for us is the next very serious move in terms of the outreach, monetization, and kind of market strategy of these brands that we've kind of haphazardly created.
yeah, does anybody, Curtis, do you have anybody have a question? I mean, I could answer a few more. Curtis, go ahead, from South Carolina. Love it.
Hey, Curtis.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really loving this because and I don't know if you know my background, but I've just opened up a private social club down here in South Carolina, very much around kind of lifestyle branding of Creekside living. And in essence, Mark and I have had some discussions about, okay, how do you take this lifestyle experience and create media off of that to generate more revenue and interest?
Yeah.
And you're kind of doing the opposite. You've got all the media and the lifestyle brand. So my question would be, how do you create experiences that tie into that brand? Is that a way for you to really kind of monetize revenue?
I think the experience leg of what we're doing up until the last year, right? Because we got bamboozled, but the interaction experiential aspect of this thing is something that we have been working on and with great success, and that is kind of creating the environments that are inspiring people to go and be at places, right? So, for example, Belmont, which is a big hotel group that's owned by LVMH.
Right.
They had some properties like this train that goes through Scotland that they couldn't sell because they just weren't good at the storytelling. So they were getting like, stargazers and bird watchers of upper age rather than a more inspirational group of people. So we said, why don't you give us the train for 2 days? We'll fill it with these kind of influential characters, not influencers. Okay. Like that word drives me nuts. Like real influential characters. And we'll put this whole kind of event together. We'll amplify it in social media. We'll photograph it for the magazine, so that we'll see a editorial moving forward. But let's kind of create this buzz of what you want this to be.
Yeah.
And they went for it, and it was terribly successful, I think, because it just changed the way people looked at the product, the train, and also the way we presented it. We kind of defined what we wanted to achieve, which was we wanted it to be as glamorous and as nostalgic as we had these kind of cinematic references for. So we put together a big group of guys, and I was like, bring your style A game. Everybody bring a tuxedo. Everybody, bring your tweeds for shooting, and then we just kind of created this lifestyle editorial moment. But by the way, like even guys who never picked up a gun before, if you're a tailor, you're going to make an excuse to be in full shooting tweeds, and all of a sudden we created this romantic point of view for this product. So I think, and we just did a recent thing in Napa Valley because, just kind of amplifying the dialogue of what Napa is. And I think it's easier for us to kind of take a step back and look at something like a whole region like Napa and say, what are the influences that get us excited about the place? And then we just kind of crafted a program about that, presented it to the vineyards, and everyone just was like, oh my God, we've never really done anything like this before. And I think the advantage of that was we were strangers to the kind of blood and guts of what it was, but we had enough reference points to say, well, what do we love about Napa? We love the weather, we love the wine, the food traditions, the people, the journey there. And so that was the lifestyle creation that happened in real time for the place or the product. And I think that works with a private club, that works with a hotel, that works with a destination, that works with, a city or town or whatever. I think creating the editorial dialogue is what is really, super exciting for us. And then putting a slightly fresher point or different point of view on what it is. Because people get stale and stuck in place,
Mm-hmm.
When I worked with Italian hotel, years ago, and I was meant to help them with their Instagram. And we went to the hotel, and I remember we were at the buffet, and it was a really nice hotel in Milan. And I said, "What is this cheese I've been eating?" And they said, "Oh, this cheese is made by this woman outside of town, and she shows up every morning on her Vespa with the cheese that from her goats, and this is on the breakfast buffet." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? Where's the pictures of that? Where's the storytelling of that? If you're 90% of your clientele is American, they should know that little Amelia Magnata, or whatever her name was, like pulls up in a 1950s Vespa and like drop stuffed cheese for the buffet in the hotel in the morning. Like that is just like editorial gold." So I thought it was good for us to kind of be able to step back and recognize that stuff. But Curtis, where's your club?
It's in a little city called Hartsville, South Carolina. So we're right on a creek, which is actually a really good kind of kayaking and canoeing creek. We're right next door to Darlington Motor Speedway.
Wow.
There's a NASCAR thing. So, it's what I'm trying to do is brand it as unique to this area. So we've got like authentic creek boats, handmade creek boats from the area, stuff like that in there. A real push toward nature, since that seems to be, a big theme as well.
Do you have red fishing and stuff like that in there? Or?
I'm sorry?
Do you have trout and redfish in there? Or?
We do have fishing in there. Yep.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of that, again, just getting started right now, a lot of word of mouth advertising. But, my biggest thing is creating experiences, because that's what travels around.
Yeah.
But I think it's something that resonates with a lot of folks now. And that's, I'm just not strong on the media side. So we're bringing in keynote speakers. We have obviously a relationship with Brigadoon, trying to leverage that as much as possible. I mean, I think like some of these salon dinners that Mark has had has been like tremendous opportunities to kind of create what you're talking about, this, storytelling around an event that's specific to like a city or location that really highlights how cool it is to come and visit that place.
Yeah. And you've got incredible food traditions down there. So
yeah.
I think people want to walk away with, listen, we all love souvenirs, but there's something very special about walking away with that souvenir, which is an experience that, you can sit around a table at a bar or at a living room and really talk about how that thing affected you deeply and how it changed the way you looked at a certain little section of the world. I think that's really important. Like, yeah, we can get inundated with stuff, but I think it's experiences that we find that a lot of people, that's the sort of trophy souvenir now. You come back and you're like, oh yeah, like you may have seen this, but oh man, I was, a woman was making fresh tortillas for me in Oaxaca with this most amazing, it was like fried cricket season or whatever that is, that people come back and have a rich experience, and that amplifies the place because they're excited about telling that story. And also kind of like wearing that badge of like, I did something that is a little different than expected,
Yeah. I think the other point I would make is the intimacy of these events. Like, and I kind of stole this from Brigadoon, but we try to have smaller events so that people get a chance to interact with all of the folks in the room.
Yeah.
Because as you get older, especially, it's like showing up at a conference with 300 people packed in a room and everybody running around trying to change business cards as fast as they can. That's just not where it's at.
No.
No,
I think creating the intimacy of the environment and making it more special than, the kind of speed dating idea of that kind of conferencing is, and also like, I don't know if I need to go to a large format kind of TED Talk idea either. I'd rather have it feel more like, again, more like a comedy club, more like this kind of intimate exchange of stuff, than something that is like massively out of control.
Hey, Joe, Isle of Wight from the UK.
Can we hear Joe?
We can't hear Joe.
He's not muted.
2 words.
Sounds like. John, are you sitting in your bar?
I am. I thought it was appropriate for the occasion.
Yeah, I think that's a good spot for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
While we're waiting for Joe, can I jump in with a?
Yeah, Chad, please, from Cincinnati, Queen City.
Yeah. So, everyone's chasing the experience. How do you figure out how you balance your patrons that you want to get to the experience with all the sponsors who also want to jump on board? And you can raise so much money monetarily from sponsors, but they can quickly overwhelm and ruin the experience. I guess, how do you develop that relationship and keep it authentic?
Well, we've been very cautious about that end of the business. Like, we've been very cautious about who we partner with and why, even though I think at this point, we really have to be thoughtful of like, what brands are we aligning ourselves with? And what do they say about who we are, right? Again, like, not to be naive, like, you need that support. And being cautious has allowed really organic relationships with brands that we really care about. Me from spirit brands like Monkey 47 to now, brands like JP Todd's and Land Rover. Like, I couldn't have put that list, that fantasy list together better than that. And now with Yolanda, with YOLO, we have like Loro Piana and Hermes really kind of paying attention of like what's going on. So that is not an abrupt relationship. So when we do these kind of events or these activations, like we did with the Belmont thing, so I approached brands like Holland & Holland. I approached brands like Hunter Boots and said, listen, your product is going to have eyeballs, the exact eyeballs you need. It's not just sort of like casting a bait net, like, these are specific eyeballs that these guys should be in your brand. And they were the smart ones. For example, Barber, who I love, were like, we don't get it. And they were like, you can buy the boots. And I was like, no. You need to financially support us. Get your product here, and we know that we're going to put your product in front of the right eyeballs. Plus we love it. Hunter came in and said, we totally get it. How many pairs of boots do you need? Tell us how we get there. What else can we do for you? So like, I think that and we're still at the infancy stage of really looking at this in the big picture way, where we really want to like kind of build out these amplifications in events and dialogues with brands that are not only financially supporting us, but paying for product place, like the ultimate product placement thing is what we're really trying to get into. But we want to do it as organically as possible. Like I mean, no offense to like Monster, like energy drink, but that's probably something we're not going to, if they came with us with a boatload of money, it would be, I hate leaving money on the table, but it's sort of like, how do I have that organic dialogue where people are like, did you just get sponsored by Monster Energy drink? You know what I mean? It would have been much better if it was like Genesee Cream Ale from Rochester, New York, like that, so we are trying to establish this platform that, just organically brings those brands that we know are like-minded and then can see us as being like-minded. Did that answer the question in a very long, drawn-out way, Chad?
No, yeah, that was great.
Joe, can we hear you now, or?
I don't know. Hopefully.
Yes.
Is that better? Okay. Thank you. I'm a bit of an amateur when it comes to Google Teams, I'm afraid, so apologies for that, but never mind. Actually, my question was kind of related to what you were just talking about, actually, Matt. So you're talking there about, at this point, you've talked a lot about the storytelling and the way that you want this to come across, and that now you're trying to organically grow the sorts of people that you guys want to partner with. Closer to the beginning of the project, when you were kind of getting things off the ground and getting things moving, were you more proactive around that? Were you actually reaching out to people that you knew and kind of making an ask of those people?
Yeah.
And if so, how did you go about that? Because that's something I just personally really struggle with.
You mean on the commercial end, like really?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of going, yeah, we've got this beautiful idea here, but actually, like, if this is going to be a business, we have to now get some people to part with some money.
Right. Okay. So
and
first of all,
crossing that line.
Okay. First of all, I knew that I needed a physical product. I knew I could not walk into a room. I could not walk into Richemont and Cartier with a presentation and a PowerPoint. Like, I knew, like, these are really old school brands that have had a long history in advertising and print. And if I'm gonna tap into those budgets, which were print advertising, that I knew were massive, I'm gonna have to show up with something. And I just felt that we needed to produce this thing first, and then put it on the table and say, you need to be involved in this thing, and show them that we had been very committed to making this physical thing in large numbers, not a, like, iBook, So really, when that car got crunched, because we were thinking, like, we knew it was going to cost X amount of dollars to get this thing off the ground, in terms of just production dollars, like, right? So when the car got crunched, that's when I really was like, now we're free to do whatever we want. We actually have the capital that's not going to tap into, our savings, and, things were, Yolanda and I both had, like, left Condé Nast. Yolanda was let go. I was still on contract, but I was like, let's be smart about this, I'm certainly not selling any watches. Okay. So when that happened, that allowed us to create this thing that I really had this gut feeling that was correct. Like, I knew there would be an audience. And then I was incredibly supportive of brands like that were, navigating the advertising landscape of Condé Nast. So Cartier was one of them. So that was the best example. And I went to Cartier and I said, listen, I've been there for you. I need you to make an investment in this thing that obviously has a very strong dialogue about watches, which in men's lifestyle, that I know you're trying to get a kind of leg up in. And it would mean a lot to me for you to have the choice piece of real estate on this magazine, which is the back cover. And they said, okay, well, what's the price? And I said, well, with some kind of minor, consulting from friends of ours in the publishing, I gave them the Condé Nast rate or close to it. And they were like, whoa, that's a lot of money. And I said, yeah, it is. And it's every eyeball on this ad is going to be an eyeball that you're going to want to be exposed to your brand. And, then that was the kind of easy part. The difficult part is then you're dealing with a ad sale leg of the, of the magazine that is talking like a language that we had no idea what that was, in terms of the kind of publishing vernacular. So there we are, Yolanda and I, Yolanda mostly, calling our publisher friend and saying like, how do we answer these people and not sound like complete idiots, you know? And it was like learning Greek, you know?
Yeah.
So, and we did it. And so then when people started seeing Cartier on the back page, then it was easier to say, you know, we have this luxury high-end product. We have the support. And that was very strategic on my part. Like I didn't want to just come in with, you know, Acme widgets on the back cover. I really wanted a powerhouse of a brand that had, you know, that was recognizable, that was respected, and had a large international amplification in terms of their editorial dialogue. And it was the right move in the end, because we used that to leverage other stuff. We still are doing well. Up until recently, we have somebody that we brought on, but you know, I was basically acting as the publisher, kind of talking dollars and cents with a lot of people. And I've always enjoyed the sales part of stuff, like, you know, from, you know, being a Boy Scout selling flags at the Memorial Day parade, you know, it was the same thing. It's like, again, it was like a good story sells the product. And there was a very big learning curve in terms of the dialogue of how to get there, but I knew how to kind of at least get their attention. And we had the product that we've confidently we're producing and stood behind.
Yeah. Okay, so that's great. Thank you. Appreciate
And
that.
I know, Joe, it's sometimes very difficult for Brits to talk about hardcore negotiations of money. I've been dealing with it.
Yeah.
And at one point, I said to a friend of mine who came on board and said, you know, we want to start advertising for you. He's has this amazing fabric mill. And I said, Douglas, I need you in the magazine. Like, this is a dream for me, for you to be a part of this. And, you know, leaving this other magazine to come to us was a great coup. And he was like, yeah, I'm in for, you know, the next 3 issues of advertising. I said, great. This is what it's going to cost. And then it was radio silence. And then finally I WhatsApped him because we were going to press. And I said, we're going to be very American here. If there's an issue with the money, you need to tell me how we make this work. And you know what? That was exactly what the hesitation was. And he was like, oh my, he was so like, he was like, thank you so much for saying that, you know? And we worked it out. Why did we work it out? Because I understand what this is all about. And you know, we're coming out of a difficult year. And I just wanted the partnership. And if that meant me, you know, kind of negotiating my terms to make it more attractive to these guys, that was easy because I still won because just by association. But there was that like very awkward, very stoic British moment where it's like, I don't really want to talk about the dollars and cents of all this.
Yeah. And you were okay with, again, here's the Brit in me, right? But almost sort of calling in favors to an extent. You mentioned like with Cartier, like you had an association with them and you were quite comfortable to go, I feel like this relationship is strong enough that if they're not interested, they can just say no and no one's going to get upset and it's not going to be the end of the world. It doesn't mean that we never speak to each other again. It's just, but you've got to make that ask, right?
You have to, I mean, my dad, you know, he always said like, you never get anything if you don't ask for it. And that's a very solid piece of advice. And I do think that there's an American, you know, no nonsense kind of dialogue often about like, you know, the dollars and cents of things, you know, from the flea market to the boardroom, it's sort of, it all gets, you know, it's like, let's get down to brass tacks, you know, that kind of, and that's what I do love about Americans in terms of like, yes, there's a lot of over promising that may not happen, but makes you feel good. But it's not like in France where Yolanda and I were going to get T-shirts that say, France, why say yes when no is so easy, you know? But, you know, you start navigating all these kind of cultural divides and, you know, how we use language and how we, you know, the levels of comfort and stuff. But I always felt like, hey, listen, I need this from you. Can you do it or not? Because I'm going to be straightforward with you. I just need you to be straightforward with me. And, you know, one of my favorite negotiating tactics is I want you to name a price where you feel you're going to get over on me, and I feel that I got over on you. And that's always when I'm like buying cars on the side of the road, which I have been known to do. I always say like, I'm not going to accept the sticker on the windscreen, but like, what's really the price where you feel good, like you really screwed me, And then I feel like I totally got over on it. And I love that conversation because you really just get to the point at that point.
Yeah.
And then, we all have what that number is in our head and stuff like that. Listen, I am no like, massive negotiator, but I think in terms of like flea market and magazine level, I think I know what I'm doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, pleasure.
Hey, John, go ahead, from the great Commonwealth of Virginia.
All right. Hey, man. I'm a fan. I have your magazines on my shelf,
Great.
and they've influenced me. Like maybe changed my life a little bit. Like summer 2019 was all about ranch waters because they're magazine.
Oh yeah.
And, when I make cacio e pepe for my kids, I always put anchovies in it now for myself, thanks to Aziz. Right?
Yeah.
But I think I was talking to Mark about this the other day. I think a lot of, besides great content, I think format has a lot to do with it for me. Like I can't do algorithm based content anymore. There's too much noise, not enough signals. So like a print magazine, I'm just crazy about print right now.
Yeah.
But I was wondering, other formats, have you ever considered something like a Bourdain style, nicely produced kind of travel series or something like that, discovering hidden gems?
So if you dig into the world of YouTube, you'll find a series that we did with Esquire called Alternate Route. And that was a little kind of hiccup moment in between my commercial photography career and getting back to the magazine, where a really good production company out of St. Louis named No Coast was following my blog. Okay, so we're going back in time. And they got in touch with me and they said, we really think this blog is a great TV show, because it was doing everything that I'm doing now, right? But on a different format, on Blogspot. And I said, yeah, I know it is, because I'm a student of television and I love television. I have all my life, and used to pretend I had cooking shows and all that other crazy stuff. And I said, I would love to produce that. And they said, no, we want you to be in front of camera. And I said, okay, let's give it a try. So we did a sizzle reel. We did one season. It was basically formatted 26 minutes. We would go to a town, like we'd go to Nashville. We'd pick up a Ford F-150. We'd go for hot chicken. I'd go to the first original NASCAR track. It was great. And a lot of that stuff was kind of back channel produced by Yolanda and I. We were either looking at all this residual content I had from showing up for like shooting a story for Country People. And I just was like, we win here. And we just kind of kept it in our memory bank. And then that show I thought was really, really well done. But it was sort of ahead of its time. Like it was still on Time Warner Cable. And basically everyone was watching stuff on these things. And they just had a very old school approach. And so now it's interesting that there's 3 production companies that gotten in touch with me about kind of producing something. And they're always trying to like fit you in, square peg round hole, because they're listening to the networks and what the networks want. And I'm just like, no. I want to go back to this original concept of this kind of great American road trip, which easily can translate to a European thing. But what I learned during COVID was, we hit the road a lot in the car, and we spent a lot of time driving around upstate New York. Yolanda had never driven through the South to Florida before. So we took like 4 days and did that journey, and, made detours to like, mom and pop peanut roasteries and like all that epic stuff that I love about America, that we took the deep dive in. And I remember just saying to Yolanda, like, there's so much amazing stuff in our backyard if you just kind of like get off the main drag and go explore. And a couple productions, including Like Jimmy Kimmel's production company, Magnolia, got in touch with us, and we're trying to develop something. But I'm really sticking to my guns. Like I really feel like we either do this idea of slow television with great content, with meaningful, smart stuff that isn't about a contest, isn't about a tension arc, was sort of like what I loved about, I don't know, PBS shows when I was growing up, right? Like they didn't have to be a tension arc to get you back to watch a commercial. So that is something that I really, really would be very interested in pursuing again, because I don't think there's anything out there that I actually want to watch, except maybe I thought the Stanley Tucci stuff on CNN was really, really good.
Oh, but that Negroni he made
was dog shit, and you can quote me on that one. I sent so my publisher was like, I know Tucci's PR really, really well. We want to send him a book, and we want to send him like one of the Negroni striped shirts that I did with Jake Muser. And I said, yeah, okay, here's the book. We'll make him a shirt, but he's got to commit to a Negroni throwdown on Instagram. So we'll see if that comes around.
Nice. Yeah. Nice. Well, I'll watch your series.
Sounds good. dig around, and I think the Nashville one is good. I think the one in Chicago is good. You could see like me as this total amateur, like kind of finding my stride as we kind of went along. But it was a fun journey, and I still think there's place for that, So I need a full critique, John.
Okay, I'll give it to you. Thank you.
Well, listen, Matt, if you're cool, like we're coming up, we've asked past 45 minutes, but if you're cool for one more question, and this is actually a good transition. The Fiat Panda, one of the most glorious cars ever invented. You famously in 2019 drove from Lake Garda to Bordeaux in a Fiat Panda.
Yeah.
And kind of topping on what John was talking about, can you give us a good? I'm a huge lover of road trips, dives and diners, and peanut stands. Can you give us a high-low road trip? North America, South, wherever. Car we should drive, where we should drive, and give us a high-low road trip we should all do.
Well, I think first of all, you get off the interstate, right? There is a great, Eric Minoff, who's the Bonham's car expert, is also a great lover of road trips, and he on his Google Maps he always takes the most, like, I don't know, I think there's an interface with like the most off main routes, right? So you could always do that, and with good cars they always put you on the best routes. I think you get off the interstate and you really explore the back roads of getting from A to Z if you have the leisure time to do that. And, I love upstate New York. I think one of the best road trips Yolanda and I, when we first met, ever did was drive from New York to Nova Scotia, like through classic New England, up into Maine, and then into Canada and Nova Scotia. And that was one of the most magical. I still think about how beautiful that drive was, and how really untouched so much of upstate New York is, not unlike pockets of the South. I did a really, Francis Ford Coppola said, if you really want to see how strong your relationship is you drive cross country with somebody. So I think that's what, we've done half that distance. And I don't love spending hours and hours in the car. I'd rather spend 12 hours getting to a place with like 30 stops than just that like pedal to the metal, pee into a water bottle, like we have friends who never stop. Like their rule is we will never stop. We have to get from A to Z. Yolanda and I factor in a 2-hour trip as 6 hours because we're stopping everywhere. And I think that's, Yolanda used to have this line when Clara was in the car, our daughter, and it was like the there is here comes from the kitchen. The there is here. And that's so good. And, like, I just think allowing yourself to be open, if not slightly vulnerable, to like make the stop, explore, meet a mom and pop with the like best Virginia peanuts I've ever had in my life. I was just like, and John, I can get you that. I can get you that name. I just thought like that's the part. That's the part of the journey is all that stuff in between, and the great characters and the good food, and a random stop at a terrific hotel somewhere because you realize that you stopped too much and you're not going to get there before they've closed essentially, and allowing that spontaneity to factor into the journey. And that could be, a 2-hour circle on a map around your hometown that says, have we ever been there? I think that's really good. I mean, that journey in the Panda, I would imagine is sort of like childbirth. Like I forgot how painful it was, but I was so excited by the outcome, and I think that, and also travel with a good navigator, beyond the phone. I think it's about really keeping your eyes open to what's around you.
I love it. That's sage advice. Matt, thank you so much for making the time. Thanks everybody for getting on board. And issue 8 is out, and the Negroni book is out, and more content coming from William Brown Project. Very exciting.
Thanks for all your support, and I really enjoyed this. Anytime.
Thanks, guys. See you, everybody. Ciao.
See you later. Bye.